Hi, today is November 17, 2022, and I want to reiterate something that I've talked about in a past entry, maybe more than one, and one, of course, that Doug McGuff has talked about in the past, and it's talking about the hidden graveyard. And one of the things that prompted me to talk about this is people talking about, how they or others are influenced by the results of other people as viewed on social media or going into the gyms or things like that. And of course, this speaks to things like survivorship bias and things like that. So to start off with, to give you some context to what I'm talking about. So for example, Marines, some of the best soldiers in the world, and of course, various countries have their elite forces and whatnot. And if you look at these men and women who are part of these forces, they are typically incredible physical specimens. I mean, the same could be true of the people who are winning national and other competitions of CrossFit and things like that. The people that you see on programs like American Gladiators and things like that. So what we're seeing, of course, is thinking, look at these people. Of course, I guess you could say this about all elite athletes, is we're seeing incredible physical specimens. And so a natural thought that comes to people is, geez, I wonder what he or she does to keep in shape, because surely this person must know what it is that they're doing. And so going back to the Marines, I got off on about 5 tangents there. Going back to the Marines, boot camp is referred to in the military and has been adopted by certain fitness programs. Boot camp, and again, I'm quoting Doug McGuff here, these are not my original ideas, was never designed to get people in shape. It was designed to weed out the weak. In other words, boot camp is so hard that only the very strong survive it and make it through, and guarantees that only very elite physical specimens and mental specimens, because boot camp also tends to be a real challenge mentally as well as physically, make it in. And of course, as a result of that, you get these incredible specimens of people that are doing these things. But, on a less extreme level, when you look at people who are fit, at whatever degree of fitness, much less than, American Gladiators or elite military forces, what you're not seeing is all the people who started and stopped exercise programs. And they either, and of course, the typical explanation is, well, if they had stuck with it like those other dedicated people, they would have gotten the same results, but they just, weren't dedicated enough, weren't disciplined enough, et cetera, et cetera. And while that's not entirely false, I'm going to suggest that there's some very valid reasons why this happens. One of the main ones is safety. Many people start an exercise program and wind up injuring themselves. Matter of fact, in my experience, when I've talked to people who have done exercise regularly for a good part of their lives, they not sometimes, not most of the time, they invariably have injuries that they tell me about that were the result of their exercise programs. Now, they're the ones who stuck with it, but most people, when they hurt themselves, actually stop. And of course, what happens in many cases is people start doing things, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years after high school, and they go back to what they did in high school, where they probably got hurt there too, in most cases, but they healed faster, although those things have likely come back to haunt them many years later. But they go back to doing that, but now they haven't worked out in years, they're older, they're not as resilient, and they probably, in most cases, are several pounds heavier. So very quickly, they hurt themselves and then pack it in. Or in some cases, tragically, they actually listen to the advice of the personal trainer in the gym, who's going to teach them things that are not, I'm not going to go into details, but are not conducive to safety and whatnot. Now, the other main reason why people don't stick to these exercise programs is the time commitment that is usually recommended is simply not realistic for the majority of people. Yes, back when you were in high school, college, you weren't married, you weren't doing volunteer work, you didn't have a career, things like that. You didn't have as many responsibilities, a house to maintain, all these things. Then, yeah, maybe you did it for a while. That's why you always hear these stories about, oh, I used to be in great shape when I was in high school or college. But now it's simply not feasible. And of course, these two things, the safety and the time commitment, are related, because one of the reasons for a lot of injuries is doing too much exercise, not giving your body enough time to recover, in the mistaken belief that more is better. Mistake that is done not just in the area of exercise, but many things. So the hidden graveyard is all those people who started and stopped and are not exercising, people who are injured. So, when you look next time you see somebody standing on a podium with a gold medal or holding up a cup or winning the American Gladiator or whatnot, and you see these people doing things, you got to say, oh, that's got to be hard on the elbows, that's got to be hard on the shoulders and all these things. Remember that for every one of those, there are countless people who did injure themselves, and these people are, are the survivors. Are very small amounts of people who are either extremely lucky because they were dealt a good genetic deck of cards, or they simply were lucky enough not to get injured. And of course, most of us, even if we had the genetics, we'll never do that because we don't have the genetics, but most of us never need to be doing the kind of stunts that happen in American Gladiator and whatnot. We just need to be able to unload the groceries from the car, and we need to be able to play with our grandchildren, and we need to, as we get older, continue to be able to do what's called the activities of daily living unassisted, so that we don't need somebody else to do it for us, which is ultimately improving your quality of life. So keep that in mind: confirmation bias, survivorship bias. There's so many things that come into play to confound that. Genetics, big one. Anyways, all for now. Thank you for listening. Hopefully not too much rambling. Hopefully there's some value in this. If so, sharing, subscribing, commenting, all appreciated. Please and thanks. Bye for now.